This is Baruch, and for those of you who love to learn Kabbalah, here's a beautiful one. We're on page Shin Ayin Aleph at the bottom, and we're talking about this Yud, the Yud that made Pinchas the equivalent of Yitzchak Avinu, and gave him that energy of Yitzchak Avinu. The Yud that represents the bris, and it says like this, also, this word, this letter, Yud, Va'os Yud, the Shakai, the name Shakai, which is one of the names of Hashem, Ihu Chulia the Shalshalas ad Kudya the Shem Yetzahara. So what's a Chulia? He says a Chulia, he says Ka'ayin Tabas, it's like a ring or collar. The Shalshalas made out of chain, Al Kudya the Shade, the Yetzahara, that's at the very end on the tail of the concept of the Shin Daled, which is the Yetzahara. So he says the low linzik, so that it shouldn't damage lay the Barnash. Mathematic will flush it out a little bit better. The Halei Amar David, in regards to this, David Hamelech said like this: Hitzilu mecherev nashi, save me from the sword, my soul, save my sword from my soul from the sword. Miyad kelev yechidasi, from the hands of the dog, that unique dog. So he says, let's go see a little bit more. So now the Zohar says, Ichu nachash, Ihu kelev. So this is the concept. It's a snake. It's a dog. It's a lion. Ihu aryeh. The Ale Omer David, in regards to this, David HaMelech said, Ye'erov b'mister ka'aryeh b'sukkah, that he hides. He waits in anguish, in hiding, like a lion in the sukkah. The prophet called him a bear. This is the meaning, dov orevhu. So the dove, the bear is lying in wait. Who li ari b'mistarm, it's like to me like a hidden lion. Nimshol b'chemos. So this shin daled that we're talking about can be compared to animals. Nimshol l'kol chavim b'sa'avin de'inin dorsin. So it's also compared to all of those creatures, those animals, which are tameh. De'inin dorsin, you use trampling as a way of being able to subdue their prey. Ismasil, it means the marshal. It's compared to l'kol bar nash kafum chovoy. So you could see this representation of the animal and all of the people according to their sins. V'ha itmar, and it says like this: V'hai ihu kelev v'nachash. This is the concept of the dog and the snake. V'chamor nowhere, and a donkey that is braying. Now, there's a lot to pick up here in the Matuk, with the Vash, and the time that we have. And so let's get down to the bottom where I can get it so we can see it. And here is the little bit more high. Here is the Matuk Medavash. So he says like this, speaking of this letter Yud, that's what we're talking about. The gam os shal mezuzah. So why do we need a sign for the mezuzah? V'Omar, and he says like this, V'os Yud Shel Shem Shakai, which is a name on the outside of the mezuzah. Shehi Sod Yud Shel Os Bris, and it's the secret of the Yud that comes along with the bris. Harishuma ala mezuzah, which is, of course, planted on this mezuzah. He ka'ayin teva, so what is it like? He says this Yud. It's like a ring, shal is made out of chain, al savaro shal the shin daled, which hangs around the neck of the shin daled, which means the other side, the force of lust and badness. He says, Yetzahara kadei lahachnio, in order to be able to humble it. It's a chain around his neck, that Yud. The Yud, what? Yud, the Yud of the bris. Kashem shakai hu osios shade, shin daled, which means the force of Esav of the other side, with the Yud attached to it. The lo the nazik lay says shalo yazik as a adam, so that this shin daled should not hurt people. Kolomer shalo the hachshel as a adam b'ravonis, in order to cause a person to fall or to trip as a result of the sins that they do. V'olav his palo David la Kodesh Baruch Hu. In regards to this, David prayed to a Kodesh Baruch Hu. Hitzila mecherev nafshi, so save me from the sword of my soul, from the sword, miyad kelev yechidase, from the hands of the dog, that unique dog. So let's go over here, and there's more matok medavash. V'derek agav, and as long as we're talking about it, b'al the shahar be'hishemus yesh the Yetzirah. There are many names of the Yetzirah. Ki lefi b'chinas ha'avon shemachshil bo as ha'adam, because according to the sin that he does, as a result, causing people to fall, kachu nikra, so he's called like that. Zesha amar ihu nachash, so that they say that he's like a snake. Hayetzirah nikra nachash ke'ilu hu machshil as adam, as if he's causing the person to trip. Ba'avon nachash, with the snake, with the sin of the snake, shehu lashon hara v'rechilus, which is the concept of lashon hara and rechilus and tail bearing. So that's what the snake does. So in regards to lashon hara, so therefore a person has to be able to strengthen himself. That's what is like a snake. Then he's also like a dog, ihu kelev, hu nikra kelev, k'shema'orer as adam l'tayvus achila. Like, for example, you have a tremendous hunger and an appetite, you have to go at it. Kamasha kaza v'chakolovim azeh nefesh. The kolovim are arrogant, their souls are arrogant. Lo yadach usavim, they don't never get sated. Pirish, Amitzudas, hakolovim heim betivim chazak chizke atayva. So dogs, by their nature, have a tremendous hunger. Ve'enam yodim masvia, they don't know really the concept of being sated. Keep a call ace yisaver atayva, they have this tremendous hunger. So he said, "Hu nikra arya." It's also called a lion. Kishemachsha as adam ledros v'lachalel es Shabbos. So he says, as he puts a lion, the concept that he causes a person ledros. What is to trample and to profane Shabbos? The Alai Amad David said in Balish Olav Amad David. He said, he says, Ye'erev k'mister ka'arya, so it hides in wait like a lion in Basuka. What's pshat in Psuka? Why does he say Sukkah? His gaver kan abore. So here, therefore, a person has to strengthen himself in the service of his Creator. Then it goes over Hanavi Karach as a Yetzirah dov. It calls it a bear, and a bear is a lovely animal not to meet. And this is when he calls the person to get into sexual averas. As ha'adam ba'arayus ha'chamuras, are the most serious ones. Zesha Kasav, and this is what it says like this: Dov orev hu li ari b'mistarim, hu li ari b'mistarim. So the dove is waiting in ambush. It's, for me, it's like a lion in secret. And also it says nimshol k'vehemas, so it's also compared to other animals. V'chein nimshol l'kol chaven, so Yetzirah nimshol l'kol chayos atameos hadorsa. So it's also compared to all of the unclean animals who trample their prey to death. V'hu nimshol l'kol adam b'tzuras chayos, so it looks like a man because it's compared to a man who looks like an animal. Kafi bechinas ha'avon, because of the sins shehekshel also bo, that caused him to sin with it. V'ha itman, it says like this: V'harei l'meinu ki zehu ha'inyan shecha Yetzirah nikrav kelev v'nachash. This is the concept that the Yetzirah is called a dog and a snake, like he's also called v'chomor nowhere, like he's v'chomor, it's like a donkey that's braying. Nikrav gam chomor nowhere. Okay, and what is it trying to say? Just a braying donkey? Maybe it means bragging. And this is what it's called, the braying donkey. When it seduces a person to throw off of the ma'ol of mitzvos, to go out into the Gentile world, live like a Gentile. The Kabbalah of old Torah and mitzvos. So therefore it's really, really important for a person to take upon himself Gam chomor, he says, take on all Torah or mitzvos, the yoke of Torah and mitzvos. Lihiyos kashor l'ol, like he should be like an ox to the yoke, ukachomor l'mas, and like a donkey that bears a burden. In other words, this is something that we want to get involved with. It saves us from so many other things. This is Baruch Fleischman, and this is the Midnight Zohar here at the Tikkun Elevator Kollel.